Julie Girling, Conservative MEP for the South West. How bad has it been for fishermen in your region?
Oh, very bad. I've heard lots of stories of quite people have lost lots of pots. You know, you've got 100 pots being lost by one fisherman here, 50 there, and that's serious because those all have to be replaced. And the weather's been so bad, they've not been able to go out and replace or retrieve. And fishermen, particularly the small boats, just haven't been able to get out of port. We're used to that, of course. You know, we always have bad weather. Nobody is able to fish every day, but it's been absolutely extraordinary this year, as anyone who's down in Cornwall knows. The winds have just created the most huge tides, and it's impossible. Fishermen are pretty brave folk. They go out in all weathers, as you know, but it's been impossible in the last couple of months.
What are fishermen then in the South West telling you about the state of their incomes compared to in previous years?
Well, for many of them, their income is zero, and it's a huge decrease. Of course, what many are telling me is that they make allowances for that. They expect their winter income to be lower, but of course, when it's zero, nobody's really planned for that, and it's very hard if you suddenly go from getting a steady, even if not particularly great income, to nothing. If you're thrown onto benefits, benefit system is hard to negotiate for many people. It's not easy, and we've now got the Fishermen's Mission, which is the welfare organisation for fishermen around the world, seriously concerned, particularly about fishermen in the southwest, particularly about small boat fishermen in the southwest. So, I think that tells you everything you need to know about the situation many people are in.
Is there anything that Europe can do to help? Is that something you've been exploring, and what kind of possibilities do you think might be in store?
Well, under the European Fishing Fund, there are possibilities for replacement of gear. So if fishermen have really experienced great capital losses, then there are funds that they can apply to. They have to go through the Marine Management Organisation, so I would really urge them to do that, make those applications as soon as they can. Under the new Fishing Fund, which in theory came into place on the 1st of January this year, in practice it wasn't finally politically agreed until about a month ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if the MMO is not really quite on top of it yet, but they will have to become very quickly. You can replace old gear quite extensively, and you will get extensive help if you've lost old gear, so long as you upgrade into more selective gear. As you know, we've banned discards, which means fishermen are being asked to do more. They're being asked to be more selective about how and when they fish. So this new gear will help them to do that. So there is actually a substantial fund available for that. And I would urge, again, Southwest fishermen to get onto that and get their applications in.
You mentioned the trouble that fishermen are facing at the moment, and the fact that these funds, they have to go for kind of more specialist, better gear, if I can put it like that. Could this in a way then be turned into an opportunity for fishermen to use this as a chance to upgrade, to improve their equipment?
Well, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, I think if I was at the moment stuck on shore, not able to make a living with half my pots missing and my boat battered, I might struggle to see the sunny side of that. But I take your point, yes. It might be an opportunity for some fishermen to make that change, perhaps more quickly than they had been expecting to. So let's hope that in that sense every cloud has a silver lining.
And what kind of support does Europe provide then? How much proportionally can they put in? What kind of figures are we talking about? Can you give an idea of how much help Europe can give?
I'm afraid I can't, simply because the rules, as I said, were only put together about a month ago, and they need to be transposed by DEFRA into the British rules. So I'm not entirely sure exactly how that's going to work, but I have written to the Fisheries Minister and asked him to expedite that as quickly as possible.
I mean, if you're not sure, and you were following this from a perspective out here in the European Parliament, if you're not totally sure, how can fishermen in the southwest know what's available to them and how to apply? Do you think that could be a sticking point?
Yes, that is part of the problem. But they can still make applications under the old fishing fund, there is still money left in that. So what they need to do is to speak to their local representatives of their local MMO. So they need to get onto the Marine Management Organisation, they're the people administering this, and ask them those questions.
And then what about in the kind of longer term, once the immediate issues are over? Do you think there's more work that can be done to help fishing communities in the longer term?
I'm not sure that we can do very much to help communities against the sort of weather we've had. People are talking, of course, aren't they, about, well, what if this weather's going to continue, if it's going to be like that this every winter? Well, I suppose fishing patterns will have to change then. You know, you can't have support ongoing for a close down of 2 or 3 months. Fishermen will have to just adjust their business plans, and let's face it, they are businessmen as well as fishermen. They'll have to adjust their business plans to allow for that. But what we have got in the new EMFF is the ability to use some public funds to help insure against these things. So they can create mutual organisations where they can effectively, it's not quite insurance, but insure against the risk. And that might be a way forward.
Do you think overall, in the reform of the common fisheries policy and all the budget stuff that comes out of Europe, do you think you've got the balance right between seeing fishing as a business and being able to offer support in extreme circumstances like these of the last few months?
Well, I hope so. It was very tough negotiations, and it's not perfect. I think we're not about putting public funds into supporting businesses in that sense, because that's state aid. But what we are about is saying that some businesses, and fishing is one of those, are subject, more than many others, to the ravages of weather and change. And they also have huge effects on communities. Those businesses, the communities that we have, say, around the southwest, fishing communities, we all know that actually there are relatively few fishermen themselves, but the infrastructure, the restaurants, the tourism, everything that goes with that is really vital to keep those communities alive. So we do have to have a balance of some public money goes into the fishing, but then it permeates through to the wider rural communities and coastal communities. So I hope we've got that balance right. I'm optimistic about it. We certainly cut out a lot of the expenditure on what I consider to be unjustifiable things like huge new engines for large trawlers. This will no longer be available through public money, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. There's no longer going to be money to build big new fishing boats. But what we have done is we've put money in to support communities, we've put money in to support individual fishermen in upgrading their individual equipment, and I think that's a good change. It's a good change of direction.
Briefly then, to sum up the different opportunities that you think fishermen should now look out for, or if I can call them opportunities, the chances that they have of applying for European funds, if you can sum up the different options and how they should apply.
Well, first thing is they need to speak to the Marine Management Organisation, and they need to talk to them about what they're eligible for under the European Fishing Fund. And in my view, that would be upgrades of their equipment if they've lost equipment, and that would also extend into things like pots if they've lost, even down to that level. And they need to do that very quickly. Then ongoing, we've got the new European Fishing Fund, which should be coming into place pretty soon. And with that, then there are much more extensive upgrades available, because that's all predicated on the new no discards policy. And again, it's the Marine Management Organisation that they need to speak to. And I'm urging DEFRA to get on and make sure that that's all clear and understood.